let's look at this in action, okay? So how do you take like a standard superhero pose and push it? Okay, so I've been quickly roughing out some pieces over here. I'm gonna go over it with you guys real quick. Here's a typical standard superhero pose, okay? So you have a pose of a superhero like this, hands here. Okay. So imagine this is a standard typical superhero pose right here. This is chest area. This is okay, but in comics, you always want to exaggerate slightly or you want to push it a little bit. So what you want to do is do like certain things within the character just to tweak it a little bit, just give a slightly little edge above the other characters around him. So here's an example. I'm going to show you exactly how I would tweak this here to kind of push it a little bit. So here you have the character, his head is slightly looking up like this. His hands is pulled back like that. His legs are kind of shooting in this direction. The knees going in this direction. And this arm is kind of powerful. So he's punching out. He's doing something like that. So how would I push this a little bit? You keep the chest in the same region. All right. And the only thing I would do is probably move the head down a little bit. So let's say you move the head down slightly and just kind of bring it the moment you bring his head down a little bit, it adds a little bit more intensity to that pose. His head is up and he's looking and he's kind of just doing this. And he looks a little bit too flimsy. It just looks a little bit like he's just doing something on a normal day, but you want to put a little bit more energy into him. So you want to slightly arch his arms a little bit, bring his head down, bring his chest up a little bit, and just kind of push him. So you want to push him a little bit. So you want to bring the chest up slightly, a little bit like that, arch his back a little bit, bring the arms up, bring the hands up slightly. So you want to push it a little bit. You have his arm coming out. Put a little bit of, twist the hand down slightly, the wrist. So instead of his hand coming out, just slightly move the wrist down a little bit, like that. Instead of keeping this leg back here, you want to twist his hip. So you would twist his hip and bring it out like that. In this region. Bring his hip out a little bit. Now the leg, bring the rest of his leg out, switch his legs, and now this actually pushes the character slightly. Now instead of this leg being on this side, you want to switch the hips over on this side. And now you can go through and establish all your shadows and everything and just kind of make the character look, a little bit more exaggerated in his pose. Now this is like a typical standard comic book action pose. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to use a pencil. I'm going to show you how I would do it with like a brute character. Okay. So bigger character, lot of muscles. Maybe the character has like a ton of armor, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. What really matters is that the volume, the size of the character. What space is he taking up? Okay, so you want to think about the weight of him, how heavy he is, where's he sitting in his 3D space, and what is he doing? So here's a character like this giant character, and say he's running. So you quickly have this character here. He's running. This is his chest right here, his pelvic area, his rib cage. This is pelvic area, right? So it's going to be pretty much similar to this pose, right? This is how you're going to push it a little bit. So you have this huge character here. Now I'm just drawing it out in large, massive, bulky shapes. The idea behind that is I'm just trying to capture volume. I'm not worried about details. I'm just worried about, okay, where does this character live in this 3D space? So here's this character. He's sitting here, his arms coming out. He's getting ready to smash through a wall, or he's gonna knock out the super villain. He's ready to punch him into oblivion, right? And so you have this character standing here. Typical pose is very similar to this, but you can push even this pose even more. So let's say you want to exaggerate slightly. You want to bring intensity into the character. You want to add a little bit more extra rage in his punch, because he just really hates this character so much, and he just wants to just completely obliterate him with one punch, which is pretty much how everybody fights nowadays. But here we go. So let's say we're going to do, this is how I would exaggerate. I would take this same pose. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to think about his midsection, all right? Where's his midsection? I'm going to twist his rib cage, the upper part slightly, just twist it a little bit more this way, okay? Instead of just standard like this, just twist him a little bit more, like that. So I'm going to twist him a little. Twist the upper part, like that. Now, the pelvic area, I'm going to keep that in that same region. So I'm just going to quickly say, okay, this is where his pelvis is going to live, somewhere in this region. Now I have the center line here, and it's going to twist, because it's actually twisting. So the lower half is here, and the upper half is turning this way. So the lower half stays where it is, okay? So he's twisting. This would be the socket for the leg, the arms, socket for the head, okay? His back would be somewhere in this region. So he's twisting it a little bit. So now I'm going to pull this shoulder back a little bit more, this shoulder right here. So now I'm going to think, okay, I'm going to pull this shoulder. I want this shoulder to live back here, and I want this shoulder to be in front of this chest area. So I'm going to quickly draw that in front of it, like that. You can go ahead and erase. I'm just going to erase so you guys can see it as I'm drawing it. So you pull this up front. So now I'm establishing the form. I'm slowly pulling the arms out as I'm drawing. I'm not just going to just draw something, or I'm not just going to focus on the contours. I notice a lot of artists, they make that mistake. They try to draw the outside of the character, and they're not concerned about, okay, where's the bone? Where is the center mass of this arm that I'm trying to draw? So once I have the shoulders, now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to think, okay, where do I want his hands to actually live? Where do I want his hands to have the most impact on this pose? So I want this hand somewhere back here in this region. So I'm thinking, pull that hand back a little bit more. So now I'm going to pull it back, and then I'm going to think about the other hand now. The other hand, he's getting ready to punch, so maybe his hands is sitting like this. Maybe his hands is kind of coming out like that a little bit. So I'm just going to quickly identify that area I want his hand to live. So it's going to be somewhere in this region. Now I have an example or an idea of, okay, I see where his hands are going to live. Now I'm going to shoot for the elbow. Where's his elbow? Somewhere over here. I want his other elbow somewhere in this region. Now I kind of get a sense. Now I'm going back to my primitives. I'm just going to go through, and I'm going to start to connect them. So I'm going to connect the forearm first because it's in the foreground. So I'm going to connect that. And then I'm going to connect the bicep because it's behind the forearm. And now I have a sense of, okay, here it is. Same thing with the other hand. So from here, I'm going to connect the forearm, which is here. Then I'm going to connect the bicep, which is here. And I have a sense of that. Pull the head out. I want his head up. You can pull his head up because he's getting ready to knock, so he's going to punch. So his head is going to be somewhere in this region. So you can have his head up like that. You could have his head down like that. It actually adds a little bit more intensity. But for this one here, I'm going to show with his head up because he's probably yelling, he's screaming, and he's getting ready to just knock him out. So I'm going to pull his head up slightly like that. So now he's getting ready to throw it. So now I'm going to focus on the lower half. So I'm going to establish his knee area and then the foot. So I'm just going to pull. I'm going to focus on one leg first, and then I'm going to focus on the second one. So the first one, I'm going to focus on the camera that's closest to the reader. I meant the leg that's focused to the reader. So I'm going to quickly draw the thigh, and then I'm going to draw the shin or the lower half of the leg. So now I kind of get a sense of it. Now I have that. Do some cleanup on this really quick. So I have just this area. I haven't even drawn the last leg yet. So now all I have to do is just quickly identify the back leg and then just quickly draw something in this region. So now I have a way stronger pose from this simple pose here. So this character here, he's getting ready to run. He's running in this direction, and he's getting ready to punch through a door or whatever it is. Okay, so imagine there's this, crazy door here. It's like, super thick. And he's getting ready to punch through it. So this has way more intensity. Now this one here, you see this coming, and he's getting ready to punch through it. Just from that pose alone brings a lot more impact into this page or this cover or the character itself. And now you have that from here, you can go through and start doing some cleanup and start to push the body parts a little bit more, make his chest look more like a chest, make his arms look more like an arm instead of these doughy objects that's kind of sitting here. But this is a really quick, rough way of just establishing that feel that you want to get. So let's do that again. So I'm going to show you how do you push just a standard superhero pose or just a standard human form and make it a little bit more heroic, a little bit more iconic. Say he likes to fly, okay? So your superhero likes to fly, that's his superpowers, and he can do whatever he's doing. Typically, the hero who likes to fly, they're not gonna slouch. They're not gonna just kind of stand there and look at you like that. Every time they're doing something, you want to show them a little bit more, just like put a little bit more exaggeration, a little bit more oomph into whatever they're doing. Instead of just pointing this way, they're pointing now. They're pushing it a little bit more. So you want to just kind of think in that direction. You don't have to push it to the extreme. I've seen artists where they've drawn like veins and everything going all this every time. They're just like super tense, and you don't want to have to make them that tense. But you do want to push it a little bit, or at least think in that direction, because if you're thinking in that direction, when you're drawing, you're naturally not going to hit that target. You're naturally going to get somewhere in between from where your starting point and where you're thinking. So you're going to get somewhere in there, and you're going to change as you're drawing. So your piece, whatever you're working on, is going to change as you're drawing, because you're an artist and you're constantly thinking and you're constantly testing and exploring and pushing things. Okay, so let's say you have like a standard pose, right? Here's this guy who likes to fly, just kind of standing here. Typical guy, right? So he's standing. He's doing his thing. He's contemplating what is he going to do today. And he's like, okay, I think I'm going to fly somewhere where I'm going to go on vacation. This is what he's thinking. and he wants to go vacation on another planet. So typical standard pose, he's just kind of just doing this, right? Now, how do you push that? What you want to do is, like I said before, you want to think about pushing his chest. So you want to push his chest up a little bit more, pull it back, his shoulders back a little bit more. And instead of his head just kind of sitting there, now you just twist his head a little bit and kind of tilt his chin up a little. And imagine him as he's wondering or imagining or thinking, where am I going? You know, just so you have to put yourself in that character, put that character's mindset, and think, what would that character do? How would he stand? What would, you know, what is he thinking of? So I would take this typical standard pose and let's push it now. So I'm gonna push it, and I'm gonna focus on the core part of his body now. Core again. This time I'm gonna push his chest up like this. I'm gonna push his chest up slightly. This is his stomach. This is his pelvic area. And now he has this type of feel to him. Now he's just standing like that. I'm not concerned about his head yet, but I'm thinking in that direction. Here's that. And now instead of his hands just kind of sitting like this, now I'm going to have his hands slightly up a little bit, just constantly like, okay, I'm at the ready. I'm ready to go flying. I'm ready to go do something. Okay. So you want to push it in that direction. Think of his arms coming out like that. Slightly exaggerate the pose. Tilts his head up. Now you have that same character with this pose right here. Now he's a little bit more heroic. If you put them side by side, and you see what I'm talking about. So you have this normal, simple character over here, same character, but I'm going to exaggerate his pose a little bit more. So now his arms are up. From here, you can quickly identify lighting. And any other pieces that make up the character, whatever it is. Okay, now let me show you another example. Let's say I'm just drawing a character. I'm gonna, you get a little bit more full body. Character is, you're drawing it for like a trading card or something, or it's a standard pose that you're doing for an ad or a cover or something, right? A lot of people, when they're concepting or they're designing something, or they're just drawing a character that's in their head, they think, okay, in this direction, okay, I want the character to live somewhere around here, his arms somewhere here and here, his chest. This is a very standard generic pose. Hands somewhere in this region, legs. Okay, so let's say this is your character. He's standing here. His head is looking up slightly. His eyes right here, in this region, right? How do you push this pose? Imagine this is your character. Your character has, giant headphones on, and this giant bubble above his head or something. I don't know, whatever it is, and he has like whatever he's doing. Okay, so this is your character here. Now let's take that, and if you just twist his body a little bit more, take the same character, just tweak him a little. Think of the core first. Move the core around where you want it to go to make it a little bit more dynamic, and then you can pull the arms and the legs out. Okay, so this is how I would do it. Again, think of the core area, right? Pelvic region, or you can call it like the underwear section. Subdivide, create, subdivide it again, just to kind of establish the upper part of the chest and the lower part of the chest right in this region. Sockets for the arms. Identify where the rest of his body is going to come. Shoulders, shoulder, elbow, hands, elbow, hands. Now you have a sense of, okay, here's this character, and just quickly draw out like a box where you're thinking, or a circle where you're thinking where his head is going to be. Now you have a template. Now you have this template. Go through and start to identify the larger features. It's going to make up this character. Connect parts like that. Establish where his hand is going to go. Create these forms. Pull this leg out first. The one in the front, pull that one first. Don't worry about the one behind it. Focus on the one in the front first. Now you have this leg. Now you can focus on the one behind it. Pull that, pull this. Now you have a better sense of, okay, where's this character? Where's he gonna live on this space? Are there other objects in the scene that's kind of just sitting around? Is there something over here on the floor? Are there other people in the scene? Stuff like that. You start thinking about these things. So now you have the character, you have this pose. Don't forget, reinforce that center line. Sometimes I'll create like a belt. I'll just really rough out like a belt, just so I can get like a belt line, something to establish this area. And sometimes, just to help me see form a little bit more, I'll quickly scribble lines like this. I'll subdivide the legs a little bit more, just so I can establish, oh, okay, I see what angle that arm is. Is the arm sitting like that? Is it sitting like this? Is it coming up a little bit more? Where's it at? So I'll create a quick line that goes across the arm right here. And now that arm, I can tell where things are going to fall. So now you have that, and now you have your pieces, and you can put that together. You put it side by side, typical standard pose, but you want to push it a little bit more. So any character, whatever you're drawing, you want to think of them slightly more heroic, slightly more intensity in this pose, and you want to think of it. These are the pieces that make your art piece come out a little bit more dynamic. And so let's look again. So let's keep going. Let's do another one. So here's another character here. I'm going to quickly establish center. Remember, you want to draw a line to represent the center part of the chest and the spine also. So these parts that I'm throwing down right here, the legs, like that, elbow, hand. Head is going to live somewhere in this region. So now I have a sense of it. Now from here, go ahead and start to add a little bit more meat to it. You can almost put a thumb there if you want to. Identify the air, the region the air is going to come. So every time I'm drawing like a head like this, and it's sideways, I'll quickly draw like a circle that identifies the region the air is going to live. That way you know how to divide the head and where the back of his head is going to go. The eyebrows, the jawline, the neck. This is that's how you know all these parts. From here, and quickly identify that. Exaggerated pose, instead of him just kind of sitting there, he's leaping a little bit more. So I'm going to push a little bit more, pull his head, pull his arms back a little bit more, just to kind of get that intensity that you're looking for. Draw the leg in front first. Always draw the leg in front first, because that's going to help you establish where that back leg is going to live. Now you kind of have a sense of, okay, this is where the back leg is going to go. Boom, and now he's back here. I got now the knee is, I pull the knee up in this region here, so it's living up in this region. You could pull the knee up a little bit more, like that, but it's going to change things, because now it's once you change this leg, this back leg needs to change also, because it needs to match. If it doesn't match, if the legs are off, it's going to throw the entire piece off. So you want to think about stuff like that. You want the character to look somewhat natural, somewhat comfortable, but somewhat exaggerated at the same time. You don't want to push it too far, and you don't want to make it boring. So keep these pieces going and constantly changing. You see how I'm constantly erasing and I'm moving fast. I'm not drawing like this. A lot of people draw like that. They just kind of quickly scribble, or they try, or not quickly, they slowly draw the parts they're looking for. Think like this. Think, I'm going to scribble energy. That's what you want to do.